Feathers will be ruffled and people will be angry, and honest to God, I don't care. When I think about Yuna wearing hip pads and being seen as a pick-me for it, it makes me feel weird because a lot of the people who call her a pick-me have faves who've had more incisions in their faces than they've had bad grades. And yes, bitch, I know you have bad grades because no one who has good grades to uphold and is, paying bills is wasting time on social media insisting on giving us an essay on their opinion on how a 17-year-old bites into a strawberry. I'm not trying to be that person, but I never really admired the way my parents grew up, or rather the times my parents grew up in. But my parents grew up at a time where in order to have an opinion, you needed to be a contributing member to society. The reason why we have all these problems in K-pop and especially misuse of terms is because now society allows idiots to have opinions, people with zero experience to have opinions, people with no education on particular topics to have opinions. To have an opinion back in my parents' day, you needed to be a standing contributing member of society. You needed to have a job, you needed to have a roof over your head, you should have been able to keep the lights on, and if you had kids, you should be taking them to school. In fact, it was so obvious that if you couldn't do any of these basic things, you didn't bother to speak at all because you knew your opinion didn't matter. But now we have this thing called freedom and rights, and while yes, I was raised in a family where I'm expected to support human rights and children's rights naturally, I think we now have a problem of just about anyone being able to say whatever they want, and that's why we have problems like this.
I just can't stand Somi. I know it's irrational for me to feel this way about someone I never met, but I just don't like her at all. The thing that annoys me the most is her voice, which is...
Their attitudes are getting more and more rude. Her talk before the MC was nothing near perfect.
Personally, I find her annoying. She's got this rickety spoiled vibe to her that is just a cut off for me. When she joins Red Velvet, I wanted to...
Free falling.
I swear to God, K-pop sometimes makes me want to kill myself.
You need to understand the weight on the term pick me. Pick me isn't just a term you can slap on any girl you don't like. It has a history that comes along with it, and because of that, if you don't understand the weight of the word, therefore it is easy to misuse it. My question is, and this is a question someone else asked on my community tab, how long before this word has a new meaning? Because oftentimes people will assume a word means something, then they will go and throw it around, and now all of a sudden it means something else. I mean, back in the day, gay meant happy. Then there was a time when gay meant lame. Now it meant homosexual people. The point I'm trying to make is that words' meanings change over time, and I am concerned that with the term pick me, it's gonna stop meaning what it was actually created for. Now, unfortunately, I do have to dive a little bit into where this term came from and why it was used, especially within the Black community. Now, like any other community in the world, the Black community has their own toxic sides. And one of the most toxic things is that Black women are expected to be 100% loyal to Black men, no matter how messed up these men are. Now, most people don't know why it is the way that it is, but I have a theory. Now, my favorite thing isn't usually to grab slavery and blame everything on it, but here's where my theory comes from. In the 1700s, there was this guy named Willie Lynch. I think that's how you say his name. He was a slave owner in England, and he was a pretty successful one because all of his slaves did exactly what he wanted. In America, though, they had a problem. Their slaves were being defiant because you can't just grab someone out of their home and try to force them to do manual labor and expect them to comply. So they wrote a letter to him asking for advice, and he gave them advice. See, in the time when he was exploring or studying Black or African people, he learned that family structures there were no different from family structures where he lived. Most people relied on their husbands to provide and protect. Their husbands relied on them to nurture and take care of the home and their kids. So he decided that he was going to break that structure down. And he said, in fact, he was so confident this could keep Black people as slaves for 1,000 years. And even if they had their freedom, this would cause lasting effects on their generations to come. And lo and behold, here we are in 2022, and he was right. I mean, if the devil ever possessed a human being and walked on earth, I would say that it was this guy because he was effed up. So he decided to give them a little experiment. He said, take the most defiant Black man you can find there and make an example out of him. Now, because obviously there's minors watching this channel and and I do not want to get flagged, I will not go into detail of what he suggested they do. But the point was that he wanted to make an example out of this guy and to accomplish two things. Number one, put what he called the fear of God in a man, and number two, cause women to become tougher. Because men would see their most defiant person being torn apart completely to shreds, it would cause a certain fear within their system to fight back. Women, on the other hand, who depended on men for everything, would become fearful for their sons, making them overcoddle their sons and just about overprotect them. However, because their daughters could no longer rely on male protection, they would then be harder on their daughters, causing this whole strong black woman trope thing. At least that's where I think it comes from. And this whole thing was a complete mess. Also, make sure that you keep the men away from their homes and make them work and only come back to procreate, explaining why there's so many fatherless homes within the black community. Anywho, that was his plan, and his plan pretty much worked, because now these women would coddle their sons every single time and be harder on their daughters. I recently listened to a woman claim that if her daughter got pregnant out of wedlock, she would kick her out of the house. But if her son impregnated someone, she would keep him in the house. The F? Because the black man was seen as the biggest victim to the white man and slavery, now black women were expected to have some level of loyalty to the black man no matter what. And because of this, time and time again throughout history, I don't think I've ever seen any race of women stand by her man the way black women do. I mean, to the point where it is toxic and ridiculous. If a black man chooses to dump you or cheats on you or whatever, you're expected to take him back as a black woman. But most people don't expect that from women of other races. If a man commits a crime and rightfully goes to prison, you're expected to go to the streets and yell Black Lives Matter and fight and scream and get shot at by rubber bullets and take pictures of it on social media like it's some kind of badge of honor. Yet we have so many black men buying microphones and making podcasts as quote-unquote high-value men talking the most crap about black women. And in fact, even better, they literally dislocate their spines to reach for any situation and make it a black woman's problem. If a man doesn't know how to raise a family, it's because he was raised by a hurt, strong black woman. If a man cheats, it's because his woman is not feminine enough. If his woman is feminine, then that means that she is a gold digger. And if community and society as a whole, when it comes to black people, is falling apart, it's because black women are educated. Do you see where I'm going with this? But for some reason, there is an expectation of loyalty. And because they grew up being coddled by their mothers, they expect 100% loyalty and ownership over black women. Recently, I watched a black man in an interracial relationship sit on his chair, look at his camera, and tell everyone how he felt angry whenever black women married interracially because he thought black women were somehow owned by black men. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was married to a man of a different race and he was talking about the women of his race like this, Barry Allen would be the second fastest person alive because, bitch, meet me at the court with these divorce papers. And you can tell that this level of entitlement runs through even in celebrities. You guys remember Serena Williams, right? She's married to her husband who happens to be white, Alexis. She married him in 2017. They have a daughter together, so it's been like 5 years into this marriage. Yet for some crazy reason last year, Drake couldn't help but name drop Serena, talk shit about her husband in his music video. Serena is his ex of how many years? And you can tell that when these men get together with these dark-skinned, unambiguous looking black women, they expect them to be the come-up woman, and they don't expect them to move on to something better. Another example would be Future. Future has a cluster of baby mamas, but if you notice, there's two women he can't stop dissing and dragging. Those women are his exes Sierra and Lori Harvey. Why? Because they not only dumped him, but then they moved on to better people when he's the one who's used doing all the dumping and expecting them to run after him. So there's always this sense of entitlement as to what black women are supposed to do. I'll give you an even better example, which is like my least favorite example, and this one comes mainly from Snoop Dogg. Of course, you can always expect Snoop Dogg, despite being a legend, to always say something dumb or something stupid, and this time around he did. I'm pretty sure you guys know who Gucci Mane is. He is an American rapper. That's what we're gonna call him. Let's just say that in certain times of his life, he was going in and out of prison. It was during his in and out of prison experiences that he met his now wife, Keisha Kayor. I hope I'm saying her name right. Anyway, when he ended up going to prison for the final time, I believe he gave her some money, which she used to create a business and a life for herself. Eventually, he got out of prison and married the love of his life, and I believe he posted a picture of him and his wife, and everyone kept saying couple goals, which what sane person is sitting around and calling them couple goals? Anyway, Snoop Dogg ended up commenting this: everybody wants this, but you all forget that she was with Wild Gucci, on drugs Gucci, cheating Gucci, in jail Gucci, publicity with other women Gucci. This is Gucci after therapy/rehabilitation. This is a street man groomed in his 30s after he'd been at his lowest point. This is a writer. Who knew what you signed up for? Y'all are the females with any other dude after a couple of fights. Now, of course, this was completely stupid and people were pissed about this whole thing because the idea is a lot of black men expect black women to sit through their toxic behavior until they quote unquote get their shit together. But no black woman wants to sit around and be Bob the Builder for a man who doesn't know how to keep his shit together. So you know what? Black women started putting their act together. If you look at statistics right now, there's more black women in business than white men. 2 women of every black man are more likely to graduate from medical school and law school, and a lot of these young women are really putting themselves up to build businesses and better lives for themselves. But regardless of all of this, black men feel some weird level of entitlement. The number of times I've seen a young, successful black girl in her 20s who's an entrepreneur building a life for herself get killed by her psycho ex because he thinks he owns her is ridiculous. And I'm talking about these stories are literally everywhere. It's shocking and terrifying. So you look at this community that does this to women, but still expect women to be loyal to black men, is why you end up with people who are called pygmies. The definition of a pygmy is a woman who will go out of her way to be misogynistic and problematic in order to get the attention of a black man. This woman would do anything, especially when it involves putting other women down. Because black men kept complaining that black women were too strong and weren't feminine enough, there was a group of women who would start acting quote unquote feminine in order to get males' attention. A good example, Amara Lenagra's post about her cleaning up and being quote-unquote wife material, it was a complete mess and a total disaster. And I don't know why a woman as amazing as her would post something like this. Another time, I watched Taraji P. Henson hosting the BET Awards, I believe this was in 2020, when she said that black women were quote-unquote ready to take everything they owned back, including the black man, which I was like, girl, he wasn't mine to keep in the first place. I never was associated with the term pick me and never cared to research about it until 2021. In February of 2021, I released a video talking about Wu Jin and his innocence, of course, and the next thing I knew, people were calling me a pick me, and I was like, wait, hang on. What? And this was the time I decided to go into research about this. People kept saying that Wu Jin would never marry you because you defended him, and I thought, girl, I'm a black woman. If you think I'm trying to swim to a racist, colorist, misogynistic, classist country to try and find a husband, you are wrong as well as stupid. One thing you need to understand is that pick-me girls are misogynistic like 90% of the time. So if you're calling a girl in K-pop pick-me, you're also likely calling her misogynist. Please do keep that in mind. And now that you've realized the weight of this word and what it really means, let's go over these women who've been called pick-me's in K-pop to try and find out why on earth they're even called that and if they deserve that label. Of course, we are going to start with my bias, Yeti. Now, if you guys don't know, Yeti was added to Red Velvet 7 months after their debut. My assumption as to the reason why they didn't wait for Yeti to be of age in order to debut her was because SM had this ongoing thing with EXO and wanted to drive attention elsewhere, so they quickly debuted Red Velvet. Yeti then joined later, and of course, she was scrutinized for it. Even though they'd been in the industry for like 7 months and had a debut, it was weird that people were really upset upset at Yeri. This made people to start question anything and everything that she did. Any mistakes that she made on stage were scrutinized, and she was heavily criticized for existing, her weight, her resting bitch face, just about anything she ever did. That hate did not reach its climax until 2017. Anyone who's a shower knows that 2017 was just clearly not the best year. In December of 2017, Jonghyun, a member of SHINee, took his own life. Now, Jonghyun had a good chunk of close friends, obviously his bandmates and some of his other label mates. And he was super sweet and a lot of people liked him, Irene included. And you know how Irene is with men. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that he and Yeri were really close, and his death devastated her to say the least. I mean, her heart was completely shattered. At Jonghyun's funeral, a lot of people showed up, some of his close friends like IU, of course, and the members of SHINee. And just watching that whole scenario of them carrying his coffin was single-handedly one of the worst moments of my life. And Yeri, of course, when they put him in the car, the girl just completely burst into tears and fell apart because someone she looked up to and loved for so many years was now dead. Now, did people sympathize with this situation? A young girl who's like, what, 16, 17, crying because her friend is dead? No. Instead, they said that she was quote unquote seeking attention by crying at a funeral. Let me reiterate that. Yeri was seeking attention because she cried at her friend's funeral. Let that sink in for a second. How does crying for your friend who just died pick me behavior? Because I remember when I was given the information at 12 years old that my best friend died in a car crash, and when I said I did not react in a rational way, I didn't react in a rational way. Worst part, I was in another city. By the time I got home, they had already buried the girl. So I missed her funeral on top of it. And the fact that people are sitting here shitting on a woman for crying because her friend died is terrifying. I believe it was an award show when IU sang a song that she had dedicated to Jonghyun, and Yeri felt herself crying. She completely went behind the rest of Red Velvet members to go hide because she knew that people were gonna drag her for this. Pick me behavior. The other issue comes with the case with Jungkook. I believe this was like last year, if not the year before. I did not pay a lot of attention to the story because it was just dumb. I believe people said that she used the same emoji as Jungkook on Instagram, which... Sorry, I'm trying to be serious. This is a serious video. Emojis? Did Jungkook invent these emojis? Because I know damn well he didn't. And the fact that people were trying to read so much into this, like she's purposefully trying to post pictures similar to Jungkook or use the same emojis as him. Girl, bye. You know, tell me you don't have a job without telling me you don't have a job. How are you sitting here crapping on someone because of emojis? Get a life and pay some freaking bills. Then you're gonna realize how difficult life actually is instead of sitting around and going off over a bunch of emojis. And because of all of this, the idea that Yeri is a pick-me girl has now circulated all over social media, mainly within the Korean K-pop community, where they see her as an attention seeker for, you know, existing. And only God knows what her mental health was like during the time when people were picking apart everything from her looks, her weight, the way she danced, crying at her friend's funeral. It is insane. And to me, this defines the fact that people don't know what you're talking about. Because how does crying at your friend's funeral make you misogynistic? Like, when you're at a funeral and crying, you know, the least of your concerns is what everyone else is thinking, and it's the fact that your friend is in a box and they're about to put them 6 feet under. That's like a reality. Have you people had like friends or family members who passed on? Because I'm gonna assume that you didn't, because if you did, you wouldn't be saying things like this. Now let's talk about the ultimate pick-me girl. This is the face of all pick-me girls in K-pop, Wonyoung. You see, someone mentioned in my last video about IVE that they believe IVE's hate was cumulative. It started as something small and tiny, and it got bigger and bigger, and it hasn't stopped. And because of this, that's why the hate is so massive and huge. And I kind of understand that, especially when it comes to Wonyoung. You see, with Wonyoung, she kind of has this image where she has to be a perfect person. And when you are the perfect idol, people will do one of two things. Either they will worship you or they will try to tear that image down. I'm sorry, let me correct myself. When you're a male idol and you have this image of perfection, people will worship you. When you're a female idol and you have this image of perfection, people will do one of two things. Either they will worship you or try to shatter your image. And with Wonyoung, they're definitely trying to shatter her image. And this all started in IZ*ONE because her hate is what you call cumulative hate. It started something small and then it just built up over time into this massive, gigantic thing, and it won't stop. It all started in IZ*ONE when she made a joke about Yujin not taking a shower for 3 days straight. Yujin said that this wasn't true and tried to explain herself. But word had already gotten out, and Yujin got a lot of flack from this. But Wonyoung ended up getting flack too, because people say the reason why she revealed this is because she found Yujin as competition and she wanted to make herself look better. Now, we don't know if this is true or not because obviously we don't live in Wonyoung's head, but this was the assumption that people were taking, and I promise you it only gets worse. Because later on when she was on a reality show talking about all the things that she learned when she went to school, playing different instruments and speaking the English language, one of the guests asked her if she ever spoke English with the rest of her members, to which she said no because they didn't speak the English language well. And somehow this made her pick me. She stated a fact. Like, what? It's like saying if I knew how to speak Spanish and I said I don't speak Spanish with my family because they don't speak Spanish well. Like, how does that make someone a pick me? The idea was that because there were a bunch of like male hosts and guests with her, she was trying to make the rest of the members look bad so she could be the center of attention. Hence the term pick me with Wonyoung started, and it never stopped. Another thing is because Wonyoung quote unquote changes her voice. Apparently she has a little bit of a deeper voice when she's hanging out with the rest of the members, but when she's hosting a KBS, she has a different voice. It's a lot more lighter and cuter. And I'm like, this sounds like your mother has never had to take a phone call while she was yelling at you. Because when my mom goes off on me and then she has to take a phone call, she'd be like, let me tell you something. Oh, hi, hello, yes, this is she. Like, literally her voice changes. And she's not the only person who does this, because I see everyone claiming that their mothers be doing this. I was watching a lot of my lives that I privated recently, and I noticed that I usually use this voice to talk to anyone at all, like if I'm talking about random topics. But if someone goes, hi, I just joined, the tone of my voice completely changes because I'm trying to be more welcoming, and I'm like, hi, welcome back, and oh, thank you for joining us, because I'm trying to sound more welcoming. I'm assuming that's why I do it. The whole thing is completely subconscious, and I didn't even realize it until like later on. And no one ever bothered to mention this because no one ever cared. So the idea that someone else can do this and somehow this gets them called a pick-me simply because they're hosting with a guy is dumb. And obviously we've seen all the double standards when she was hosting with Seunghoon of ENHYPEN. When Seunghoon either rolls his eyes or whatever, they're like, oh my god, he's a savage, he's not putting up with this crap. When Wonyoung does it, she's doing it for his attention. Sorry, I'm trying to be serious, I swear. But I can't take these people seriously. As far as I'm concerned, looking at all these quote-unquote reasons why she's a pick-me, I still can't find why she's even being called that, because none of these things align with the definition. The fact that she's doing this to get male attention doesn't sound to me like that's what in reality is. It just sounds like it's something people are making up in order to justify calling her a pick-me. And then there was the situation where she failed to open a packet of chips. Now, I don't know if it's just you, but there are packets of chips I can open easily, and then there are some that are so tough I have to ask my sister. My sister is physically stronger than me, so I asked her to open stuff for me because I genuinely can open stuff, and I am in my mid-20s, okay? So yeah, the idea that she can open one packet of chips and people were saying she was doing it for Seunghoon's attention, girl, bye. And then there's the eating and the strawberry situation. In my personal opinion, I don't buy people who walk around and say, it's just my opinion. How on earth are you going to sit there as a whole person and make an entire essay about how someone biting into a strawberry is cringy? And when people tell you that's not normal behavior, your only defense is, it's my opinion. It's my girl, bye. It doesn't make any sense that you have this much time on your hands to write an essay as to why you don't like the way a 17-year-old bites into a fruit. When did this even become topics of discussion? Do you see yourself? How do you go to bed every single day knowing that you are this stupid? Like, how are clowns literally being paid $80,000 every year to do their jobs and you were doing this foolishness for free? Make it make sense. I'll never understand it. So as far as I'm concerned, Won Young is not a pick-me. You guys are just obsessed and have nothing better to do with your lives. End of discussion. And then we have, of course, Yuna. Yuna is the latest, in my opinion, victim of this pick-me mentality. And the reason why she's considered a pick-me is because she had a fear of confetti. Girl. Now, Yuna has shown over time that there are times when she's relaxed and not bothered by confetti. But every once in a while, I don't know whether it's because she's nervous, she is completely just shocked by confetti, just comes out of nowhere. Now, I've never seen people be mad at other female idols who are shocked by confetti every once in a while. I don't see anyone calling them pick-me girls. And even when guys are like completely scared off by the loud noises that comes with the confetti, I don't hear people calling them pick-me boys. Also, pick-me boys, are they a thing? Anywho, the point I'm trying to make is that people said that it was because she was trying to get Sunghoon's attention. There's this one video, I think it was their win for what? God, I don't remember. The point is, the confetti went off and she completely freaked out and she turned to Sunghoon, who was at her left, completely wide-eyed. Now, if your response to this is she did this to get Sunghoon's attention, you're dumb. ITZY had a win. Sunghoon had the trophy. She was expecting to turn around and get the trophy from him, but then the confetti wore off and it scared her. Hence why she had even turned to Sunghoon in the first place, because she was trying to get something from him. So the idea that people put up this, she's doing it to get his attention, is dumb. And then there's the story that it's because she wears hip pads to enhance her figure. Your faves aren't natural, sis. They've had more injections in their faces than you've had, like, good, decent grades. Like, sis, these people do not look natural. And the idea that she wears hip pads to enhance her figure makes her a pick-me, then all of her faves are pick-me because they've all shaved their faces and injected stuff to make themselves look the way that they do. So I don't see why you're even complaining about this. Don't get me started on the story that she looks at boys. Have you ever been to high school your whole life? Because, like, I had crushes that I stared glances at when I was in school. No one called me a pick-me. They just thought I had a crush, end of discussion. How does possibly having a crush on a guy call someone a pick-me? Or because she sneezed and she said, bless me, and now she's a pick-me? Or because she chose to sing Love Dive on a live, and now she's a pick-me? Like, make it make sense. Because when I think of pick-me and the weight of that word, none of these women actually fit into this whole scenario. So the one thing I can never understand when it comes to these women and the usage of the term pick-me is why people are so comfortable with using it. And a lot of it, I think, truly stems in jealousy. If you look at all the women that I've mentioned here, they are not only considered really pretty, they are attractive, but they've also seemingly have some interactions with male idols. And because a lot of other people want those interactions with their oppas or whatever the hell they are called, but for some reason cannot have those interactions, they shit on anyone who can, which why it would make sense that most people who call Won Young a pick-me happen to be engines because Sunghoon. A lot of people who call Yeri a pick-me, especially in the last couple of years, are armies because of the whole thing with Jungkook. You like to call other people pick-me's, but maybe you're the one who needs to be educated that your faves will probably never marry you. They don't know who you are, and walking around and bashing the women they interact with to try and prove a point is not going to work. I would just suggest you stop using that word, and as this wonderful person here said, just keep K-pop Twitter the hell away from Black Twitter and we will be fine. Pick-me women are willing to throw other women under the bus in order to get attention from men. And unless you can prove to me that that's what these girls are doing, I'm not buying this pick-me story and I'm not tolerating this garbage. That's all I have to say. See you later. Bye-bye. Mwah.